In the quiet town of Gravenshire, nestled within the dense canopy of ancient trees, stood the imposing Gravenshire Abbey. For centuries, the abbey had been a symbol of hope, faith, and solace for the townsfolk. It was a refuge for the weak and a haven for the believers. Among its inhabitants was Sister Isolde, a quiet woman of profound beauty and deep contemplation. Yet, few knew the secrets she guarded or the power she harnessed. It was on a crisp autumn day when Sister Isolde's true self began to emerge. The nuns of Gravenshire Abbey often retreated to their chambers during the evenings to engage in personal prayer and meditation. But Sister Isolde, under the guise of devotion, had been indulging in rituals far removed from the teachings of the Church. Her chamber was adorned with symbols and artifacts unfamiliar to the Christian faith. A pentagram etched onto the stone floor, candles of black wax that flickered with an eerie blue flame, and an ancient grimoire, its pages yellowed with age, filled with incantations in a language long forgotten. That evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting the world in a cloak of twilight, Sister Isolde began her most ambitious ritual yet. Whispering incantations from the grimoire, she summoned the dark forces that she had formed pacts with. The room grew colder, and the candle's flames turned a deeper shade of blue, illuminating the chamber in an otherworldly glow. As the ritual reached its climax, a shadowy figure emerged from the heart of the pentagram, its form vague and constantly shifting. The entity's presence was overwhelming, its energy a mixture of menace and allure. "Why have you summoned me, servant?" The entity's voice echoed, a cacophony of whispers that seemed to come from all directions. Sister Isolde, undeterred by the entity's intimidating presence, spoke with confidence, "I seek power, more than what I currently possess. Power to influence, to control, to reshape this world in the image I deem fit." The entity seemed to ponder her request for a moment before responding, "And in exchange?" "My eternal servitude," she replied without hesitation. A wicked smile seemed to form on the entity's shadowy face. "Very well, Sister Isolde. The power you seek shall be yours. But remember, every gift comes with a price." With those final words, the entity vanished, leaving behind a room filled with an oppressive silence. The candles returned to their natural glow, and the temperature gradually normalized. But Sister Isolde was transformed. Her once pale blue eyes now glowed a deep shade of crimson, and an aura of power emanated from her. Over the next few weeks, the changes in Sister Isolde became apparent to the rest of the nuns. She was no longer the quiet and contemplative sister they knew. She spoke with authority, her words carrying a weight that made others uneasy. Whispers began to spread throughout the abbey about Sister Isolde's newfound influence over the minds of her fellow nuns. One by one, they began to follow her without question, their wills seemingly bound to hers. The abbey, once a place of peace and devotion, started to transform. The symbols of Christian faith were gradually replaced by the very symbols that adorned Sister Isolde's chamber. The once harmonious chants of the nuns turned into haunting melodies, their words echoing with a dark intent. As the days turned into weeks, the townsfolk of Gravenshire began to notice the changes as well. They spoke of an unsettling presence emanating from the abbey, and many reported seeing strange rituals being performed within its walls under the cover of night. The once welcoming doors of the abbey were now always closed, and the townsfolk were turned away if they sought solace within its walls. Fear and unease began to grip Gravenshire. Whispers of Satanist nun began to circulate, with many believing that Sister Isolde had made a pact with the devil. But as much as they feared her, they were also captivated by her. Her beauty seemed to have intensified, her words carrying an irresistible allure. Yet, not all were swayed by Sister Isolde's power. A small group of townsfolk, led by the town's elder, Elias, began to form a plan to confront the Satanist nun and save Gravenshire from her dark influence. But they knew they were against a power that was ancient and formidable. The stakes were high, and the battle for Gravenshire's soul had just begun. Elias, the town elder, had seen many winters and faced numerous challenges in his lifetime, but none as daunting as the malevolent force that had taken hold of Gravenshire Abbey. Gathering a group of the town's most courageous souls, he formed a clandestine council. They met under the cover of night, in the town's oldest tavern, away from prying eyes and the hypnotic influence of Sister Isolde. Among the council was Magdalene, a healer and wise woman who still remembered the ancient rites and spells of the old world. With her deep knowledge of the arcane and her familiarity with both light and dark magic, she was the council's most valuable asset. As the council deliberated on their course of action, Magdalene revealed that she possessed an artifact known as the Lunar Locket, which had the power to counteract dark forces. However, for the locket to work, it needed to be activated within the heart of the dark forces layer, making the mission perilous. The council decided that a small group, led by Elias and Magdalene, would infiltrate the abbey. Their objective was to find Sister Isolde and use the lunar locket to break the pact she had made with the shadowy entity, thereby restoring balance to Gravenshire. The night of the new moon was chosen for the mission, as it was believed that dark forces were at their weakest during this phase. Armed with the lunar locket and other protective talismans, Elias, Magdalene, and a few brave souls approached the foreboding walls of Gravenshire Abbey. They entered the abbey through a forgotten underground passage that led to the catacombs. As they navigated the cold, winding corridors, they could hear the haunting melodies of the nuns above, their voices echoing with an unsettling harmony. Reaching the main hall of the abbey, the group was met with a chilling sight. In the center of the hall stood Sister Isolde, surrounded by the other nuns, all in deep trance. Above them, a vortex of dark energy swirled, the shadowy entity manifesting itself, feeding off the collective energy of the entranced nuns. With determined resolve, Elias stepped forward, holding out the lunar locket. "Sister Isolde, by the power of light and all that is good, I command you to break your unholy pact." But Sister Isolde, with her crimson eyes fixed on Elias, responded with a sardonic smile, "You think your trinkets can stop me?" Magdalene, chanting incantations under her breath, moved closer to the vortex. As she did, the lunar locket began to glow with a silvery light. The shadowy entity let out a deafening roar, its form becoming more unstable. Sister Isolde, sensing the threat of the locket, lunged at Magdalene. But Elias, drawing upon an inner strength, stood in her way, engaging her in a battle of wills. Their eyes locked, and an invisible force seemed to emanate from both, causing the very foundations of the abbey to shake. As Magdalene continued her incantations, the other nuns began to snap out of their trance. One by one, they fell to the ground, disoriented and weak. The vortex of dark energy grew smaller and more erratic, the shadowy entity losing its grip on the physical realm. With one final, powerful chant from Magdalene, the lunar locket released a blinding light that enveloped the entire hall. The shadowy entity let out a final, anguished scream before dissipating into nothingness. As the light faded, the abbey was restored to its former state, free from the dark influence that had taken hold. Sister Isolde, now lying on the ground, looked up with eyes that had returned to their pale blue hue. The malevolent force that had possessed her was gone, leaving behind a broken and remorseful woman. Elias, extending a hand to help her up, whispered, "Gravenshire is free, but we must ensure that such darkness never returns." As dawn broke, the townsfolk gathered at the abbey, celebrating the victory of light over darkness. The nuns, once under Sister Isolde's influence, were now free and began the task of rebuilding and healing. But while the immediate threat was over, the events that transpired served as a cautionary tale, a reminder of the delicate balance between good and evil, and the eternal vigilance required to maintain it. The weeks following the confrontation were a blur for the inhabitants of Gravenshire. The townsfolk rejoiced at the restoration of their beloved abbey, but the events had left deep scars, both physical and emotional. Whispers of the satanist nun and the shadowy entity had spread far and wide, and Gravenshire found itself at the center of unwanted attention. As for Sister Isolde, her once commanding presence had diminished into a specter of regret. Shunned by many for her role in the harrowing events, she found herself torn between a desire to flee and a need to make amends. Magdalene, sensing the profound remorse within Isolde, approached her one evening. "Your soul is heavy with guilt," she observed. Isolde, her eyes glistening with unshed tears, replied, "I brought darkness upon this town, upon the very abbey I swore to protect. How can I ever find redemption?" Magdalene, her voice gentle, said, "Redemption is a path, not a destination. It begins with acceptance and is built upon actions." With Magdalene's guidance, Sister Isolde embarked on a journey of atonement. She started by tending to the nuns who had been under her influence, caring for them, and aiding in their recovery. She mended the physical damages to the abbey, restoring the sanctity of the sacred place. And she reached out to the townsfolk, not with words of defense, but with deeds of kindness. Over time, the wounds began to heal. The people of Gravenshire, witnessing Isolde's genuine efforts at restitution, slowly started to accept her back into the fold. The children, unaffected by the prejudices of the adults, were the first to approach her, their innocent laughter a balm to her tormented soul. One of the most significant acts of her redemption came on a cold winter's night. A raging fire, its origins unknown, broke out in the heart of Gravenshire. The townsfolk, caught off guard, scrambled in panic. It was Isolde, drawing upon the inner strength she had once used for darker purposes, who organized the nuns and led the efforts to combat the flames. By dawn, the fire was under control, and many credited Sister Isolde with saving a large part of Gravenshire. The fire served as a turning point for Isolde's relationship with the town. The people began to see her not as the Satanist nun but as a hero, a protector. Her past actions would never be forgotten, but they were no longer the defining chapter of her story. Years passed, and the events at Gravenshire Abbey became tales told by the fireplace, the lessons therein passed down through generations. Sister Isolde, having found her redemption, continued to serve the town and the abbey with unwavering dedication. As age caught up with her, she retreated more and more into the confines of the abbey, spending her days in quiet reflection and prayer. And it was in the very chamber where the dark events had unfolded that she breathed her last, surrounded by nuns who had once been her victims but were now her family. In death, she left behind a legacy of resilience, of the power of redemption, and the endless capacity of the human spirit to change. Gravenshire, once a town shadowed by darkness, had become a beacon of hope, a testament to the enduring battle between light and dark and the strength that emerges from the ashes of adversity. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and share it with your friends. And if you haven't already, be sure to subscribe to my channel for more stories. Until next time, take care and keep watching.